Patriots got some reinforcements today. Mike Giardi, Ty Montgomery, and Pierre Strong all returning to practice in red non-contact jerseys. Promising sign that they will be ready for week 1. But before that, the Patriots have one more preseason game Friday night in Tennessee. And 1 week from today, the roster needs to be trimmed down to 53. And with that in mind, Phil Perry releasing a new projected 53-man roster. Some areas deeper than others. Phil has the Patriots keeping all 6 of their wide receivers. Calvin Anderson does not make the cut on the offensive line, but rookies Chad Ryland and Bryce Behringer among the whopping 8 specialists that Phil projects for the final 53. One name, though, not on that list. Malik Cunningham. All right, welcome into Arbella Early Edition. I'm Trenni Casey alongside Amina Smith, our Patriots insider Phil Perry, and from BSJ, Mike Giardi. You just saw the former 2 on Quick Slants. We're going to make you talk Patriots again. What was your biggest takeaway from Phil's 53-man projection?
Biggest takeaway has to be Malik Cunningham. We talked about him so much after the first preseason game. He's been so versatile in training camp and the preseason, playing at quarterback, wide receiver, on special teams. That was the number one thing that stood out to me. After that, 6 wide receivers, and then also Tyquan Thornton making that room as well, with him being hurt throughout training camp and also in the spring. I don't know how Tyquan Thornton hangs around in a wide receiver room that's that crowded, Phil. I'm not going to lie. I'm thinking to myself, he hasn't really done much in training camp and the preseason to kind of hang on this roster.
He hasn't, but he's a second-round pick, and he runs a 4.2. Period. End of paragraph. Like, that's basically, I think, what's going to get him more time. And now, just because I have him on the 53 doesn't mean he'll even be available to them week 1. I don't know what's happening with the injury situation. We don't know how much time he's going to have to miss. But if you want to put him on IR now, you lose him for the year. To be able to keep him and be able to bring him back when he's healthy mid-season, you do have to include him on that initial active roster, so that's why he's on my list there. 6 guys, no Malik Cunningham. Mike, that's the one that we're not supposed to root. That pained me a little bit because I like watching him at quarterback. Yeah. He's worked really hard behind the scenes. I know that. But after a few conversations last night about his potential and the potential for him to sneak through waivers and onto the Patriots practice squad, I said, it sounds like people who know more than I do feel as though he's destined for the P squad.
Well, this is what happens a lot of times too when you're following one team in particular, right? You say like, oh, I don't know if they can waive that guy. I don't know if they can waive that guy. But then you go year after year after year, and almost all of these guys make it through. So in Malik Cunningham's situation, you're talking about someone who's going to have to claim him, immediately stick him on the 53, and then have him there for at least 3 weeks. So you've had all these guys that you've been working with for months, and in some cases over a year. You know, they were in your practice squad last year, and you've been working with them. And you're going to say, no, we're going to take a flyer on a guy that we didn't draft, that we didn't sign in free agency as an undrafted free agent, and we're going to stick him on the roster, and then we have to force feed him the playbook. Like, that's a difficult thing to do. He's more receiver than he is quarterback at this point too, and as a wide receiver, hasn't really jumped off the page. So I think he's one of those guys, to Phil's point, you can probably get him through and still have him on your practice squad if you want to keep working with him.
Yeah, and I don't think it'd be a surprise. I think it would be a disappointment because people want to see Malik Cunningham out there. They want to see what he's capable of. Not really a surprise, and that was what was surprising to me, Phil. A lot of times you'll look at 53-man projections, and you'll see someone like a Tyquan Thornton that doesn't make the final 53, or another bigger name that's sort of like teetering on the edge. No, none of those this time. So what does that tell you about the roster?
Well, listen, I think this has been the case the last couple of years, really, where when we're putting these together, it's more, can you find 53 NFL players versus, oh boy, who are the 3 or 4 really difficult cuts from the 56 that I really think the Patriots should try to find a way to keep in that locker room. It's just not the case right now. Mike, I know you're doing 53-man roster projections as well. I don't know if you feel the same way. But when you're talking about guys like, again, fringe NFL players, guys like Calvin Munson, who made my 53-man roster as a special teamer, when he makes your roster, or Amir Speed, who's a late-round pick, he's really only going to play special teams for them, it looks like. That quote-unquote tough cut, that quote-unquote surprise cut, I'm not sure it exists.
Yeah, what wasn't hard for me to do. In fact, the way their team is constructed, there's like 11 or 12 defensive linemen that you could put on the team. Nobody carries 12 defensive linemen on their 53-man roster, but that's sort of where some of their best talent is, or some of their deepest positions are. And so the question then becomes, can you do something? Do you keep all those guys, but with a conversation you're having with someone else saying, I'll give you my number 6 defensive tackle for your number 5 corner, and now you get them better in their spot, you bring in a body in your spot. But it wasn't that difficult. In fact, in some places you're like, I guess I need another linebacker. Like, to your point, I mean, Munson's a linebacker. I put Mack Wilson on mine, and I thought Mack Wilson had a really tough time on Saturday night in Green Bay.
I'd say one of the things that actually stuck out to me when I was looking at your 53-man roster was, ooh, that linebacker group is not very good. But I know we're not going to get into the details of that today. But that was one of my reactions. I was like, oh, that's not a great linebacker group. Speaking of a group that's a little iffy, Amina, the offensive line. 8 of those guys are making it for Phil. But how many of those guys do you trust?
Oh, not many, because many of them haven't been there in training camp. You talk about Mike Giardi, he's coming back from that ankle surgery. You've got also Cole Strange, who's been out during training camp. Calvin Anderson, who's not on that 53-man projection, but he's also been out as well. I mean, the Patriots, they are super thin at offensive line, and that's a big concern, obviously, for everyone coming into this season, because you're looking at the wide receiver room, and Phil, you've got 6 wide receivers on there. How is Mac Jones going to throw to those receivers if there's nobody up there to protect him? So I think just up front, that's the biggest concern with this Patriots team, is finding out whether or not they have a good, steady offensive line and also a healthy offensive line coming into the regular season.
Yeah, Mike, the 8 guys that Phil has on his list, are those the 8 that you think they end up going with?
I think there's going to be some conversations here as we get closer to cutdown day about maybe acquiring another offensive lineman, depending on what you feel about Anderson and whether you want to continue that process with him, as he's been down the entire majority of camp here. That's a question for me. But I do wonder, Sidy Sow and Riley Reif have settled in as your right guard and your right tackle here for the last couple weeks. And I wonder, and Phil, we were talking about this on Quick Slants, I almost wonder now, like, is that what they're prepared to go with? Because you don't know when and when who's coming back. We haven't really seen much of him. I know he was out in Green Bay, but we haven't seen him on the practice field yet. And you say, well, we're building some continuity there, and that might not be perfect. But if I'm Bill O'Brien, I say, I can kind of game plan around a rookie right tackle if I have my other 4 guys in place.
Continuity is the key word there. At some point in time, as you're getting ready for week 1, you kind of have to put your foot down and say, we've got to get these 5 guys reps together so that they're seeing the game through the same set of eyes. It's something Dante Scarnecchia told us for years. David Andrews has picked up on it, and now he's parroting that same line to us very, very frequently because it matters. So, to Mike's point, it looks like it's Sow, Reif, and then on the other side, it's Antonio Mafi, who's a 5th-round rookie. It's Trent Brown, who's been in and out. So it's not a perfect group. Like 3 of those rookies that make the roster in my projection, you'd love for them to be backups.
Right.
But now you have 2 in the starting lineup before you're about to face a really, really talented pass rush group in Philadelphia's in week 1. It's a little bit scary.
They went out and signed Calvin Anderson. So what's going on with him? Like,
he's on the
he doesn't even make your roster.
So he doesn't, because he's on the non-football illness list. So the way that works is you can stay on that list all the way through camp, not practice a single time, and you can still be eligible to come back mid-season. You do have to miss a set period of time when the season begins, but you use that time to allow him to ramp up, get ready for NFL play, because you don't want to rush him out there now, even if he could be on the field now. We didn't see him out there today at practice, but you don't want to rush him and just try to speed things in such a way that you're making sure he's ready for week 1. That feels unrealistic to me at this point. So maybe he stays on NFI and he joins your team week 6, week 7.
Listen, I understand, guys, that they want continuity, but the fact that Josh Jones is available in Arizona, like, I don't understand why at the very least you don't explore a trade for him. Listen, don't watch a lot of Arizona Cardinals football.
They're not very good. You know,
not going to pretend I know a lot about Josh Jones, but the people who write a lot about football and break these things down say that he made huge strides last year. He can play guard. He can play tackle. He's one of those swing guys. I don't understand why the Patriots wouldn't try to put together a trade package and go after this guy.
I mean, he's also going into the last year of his rookie deal. We know that the Patriots don't like to spend money. They like to get players cheap, so why not go after him if you need that help on the offensive line and you need that depth on the offensive line as well. And he's a starting caliber offensive lineman, so why not go after him? Like, Phil, I feel like this is a perfect match for the Patriots to kind of go after him.
And think about who's in that front office in Arizona. Former Patriots exec Monty Austinfort. Now, I think he'd be open to dealing him because he's not even a starter for them right now. He is going to the last year of his rookie deal, but you're going to have to give something up to get him, and who knows if the Patriots would be willing to pay that price. If he ends up signing a pretty decent free agent contract next offseason, Mike, that would get the Cardinals a halfway decent comp pick. Are the Patriots willing to beat them to the punch, so to speak, give them the pick now, and give up 4 years of a rookie, 3rd or 4th round pick to get this guy for 1? I don't know if they would be.
You feel like you got to be right if you're going to do that, right? That you're making this acquisition and this guy's going to come in and he's going to immediately be part of your starting 5 and someone that you lean on. And I wonder now, like I understand what Arizona's going through, and of course, Monty's trying to get his own guys in there. Gannon, they're trying to get their own people in there. But offensive linemen, as I was discussing, they're very hard to find. There aren't very many good offensive lines from left tackle to right tackle across the league, never mind depth pieces. So to me, what does it say about him? What's going on there? I think you have to kind of ferret out what's happening there, because generally, I think this is someone, if you're Arizona, you'd still kind of want to work with and see if maybe he is part of your long-term plans.
Anybody else out there? I know one of the names that has come up is Jason Peters. He's pretty much like my age. I don't know why. Maybe Mike's. I don't know.
Yeah, Probably
I don't like. To me, that doesn't seem like an option, Mike. But maybe it is. Like if the Patriots get desperate.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that route. I know that a lot of people brought up Connor Williams with Cincinnati. Connor Williams is a starting Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Williams.
There.
A lot of Jones, a lot of Williams.
He's a starting right tackle for the Bengals, who think they're going to a Super Bowl this year. Like, they're not going to trade him. Well, Collins is the guy that he supplanted. Collins, of course, got hurt against the Patriots last year, and he's still on the pup and probably going to start the year there. And maybe he's someone, I don't know, like that's just, you're asking a lot there. I think, again, the best players out there, they're not going anywhere.
They're not, and I like the idea of developing City So. If you think you have something in him, and you believe he's smart enough, he's healthy enough, athletic enough to continue to project upward as he goes through his rookie season, just keep him around rather than signing somebody like Jason Peters. You know what he is, and he's at the tail end, and he's probably getting worse. If you get a young guy who's going the opposite direction, that's who you want to work with.
All right, let's bring this full circle back to Malik Cunningham, because Phil apparently doesn't want us to have any fun.
That's not true.
He's got the most fun part of Patriots camp, Malik Cunningham off his initial 53-man roster, as we all gasped at the start of the show. Former Louisville quarterback got lots of run at receiver Saturday night against the Packers. Did not play any snaps at quarterback. Here's what I'm wondering. Is he a camp curiosity, or is he a legit NFL player?
I think he's a legit NFL player. I think you just have to give him time. I liked what I saw from him in college. I didn't honestly watch a lot of him live in college, but once they signed him, Mike, they made a real commitment to him. They gave him $200,000 guaranteed. That's unusual for guys coming into the league that way. And then what we saw in that preseason game, I saw toughness, I saw poise. I know it was very brief, and I know it was against backups to the backups. But we know the guy's an athlete. And we saw maybe the most accurate throw of that preseason opener come from his right hand. I just have seen enough that would warrant more time. That's all. If that's on the practice squad, then fine.
The question is, what is he, though? Is he a gadget player, or is he someone you feel like could play quarterback for you at some point, or at least be a viable backup? They haven't given him enough opportunity to play quarterback, and the idea of trying to do it now is crazy. Like, he spent the majority of his time, 90% of his time, he spent with the wide receivers. He spent being a wide receiver. So being a quarterback now doesn't make sense. You could do a package here or there for him. But that's the question. Like, to me, is his ceiling as a wide receiver enough that you want to keep him around? Or are you looking at it and saying, no, this guy could help us on special teams. He could be a guy that we put in for a series or two at quarterback. He's someone maybe we can use in the red zone. Do you feel like you can develop him there? Because I think that's probably his best value.
The question you're asking is, can he be Taysom Hill?
Yes.
Because Taysom Hill brought real value as a special teamer. He could carry the ball for you if you wanted to use him that way. He could occasionally, although not very well, throw the ball for you. I don't know if Malik Cunningham gives them all those things in the same way Hill did.
Yeah, that's my thing. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what he would do for the Patriots.
Well, maybe then he does slip through the practice squad, because maybe no one else knows and wants to give up that spot anyway. All right, well, the Connecticut Sun are in Washington, D.C., taking on the Mystics tonight. You can